Good to see you, Sue. Thank you so much.
So good to see you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
All right.
Destin, Emerald Coast. It has been quite the journey to get here for me. Yes, if any of you have kept up. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Julian Brown. I'm 22 years old, and I'm an inventor. I build machines that turn plastic waste into fuel, like gasoline, diesel, jet fuel. And I've been building these machines. Thank you for your applause on that. I've been building these machines for the past 5 years. Now I started when I was 17, and I built, to date, 5 different prototypes. I'm currently building my my next prototype, and my next prototype is actually the most ambitious machine yet, because the next prototype is going to be on a trailer. It's going to be a mobile machine. So any of you who have been keeping up with my social media may have seen that the bus that we've been working on that's going to pull the trailer, I recently got it wrapped in Miami. You know, we have many different sponsors that have helped the project, including the Company of Heaven with Smarty, who was in the convention. Yet, round of applause to him, for sure. But anyway, we got it wrapped there, and I had to drive back up to Destin in time, and I just ran into complication after complication. I just arrived in town after getting towed overnight. I had been up for over 24 hours. We just arrived about an hour ago, briefly jumped in the shower, got dressed, 180, and now we're here. So I'm very happy, very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful for all of you, for all your patience. And what I really want to talk about is more than anything, you know, the state we're in this world, in this day and age, can appear very. It can be very easy to be pessimistic with how the world works or how it looks right now, right? But you see, when I was in the 10th grade and I saw the plastic problem. You know, they showed us the video of the oceans with all the plastic and the microplastics and just it being everywhere. In that moment, and the video ended, they're like, you know, there's nothing we can do about this. You know, we're not recycling properly. It's not working. And in that moment, I could have become pessimistic. Anybody could have become pessimistic and said, you know what, we're doomed. It's going to end up like Wall-E in this world. But instead, there was a mindset change where I saw this broad problem, and I said, okay, what can I do about it, right? How can I actually be a part of the change? Like Michael Jackson said, man in the mirror, right? And that really is important for all of us to apply, because at the end of the day, there is no problem too big for us to solve. And there is no problem that we can't solve, because that's just the duality of everything, right? If there's a problem, there is a solution. Positive, negative, yin, yang. And so thus, the most important thing we have to remember is that the power is within us. If we want the world to be better, that the power is within us. If we want it to be worse, the power is within us. It's all about our perspective and our action towards doing things, right? And so I took the plastic problem, and I almost took responsibility for it in a way. Even though, you know, of course, there's mega corporations adding to the plastic problem in the ocean, and, you know, even though it's been going on since before I was born, I almost took accountability in a way to say, you know what, I don't know why this problem has become this bad and why it's been allowed to get this bad. I don't know who's behind it or what the agenda is behind it, but all that's irrelevant, because I have been blessed and granted and bestowed the opportunity and the ability and the capability to do something about it. And so I'm going to do everything I can within my power to do something about it, right? Even hence the name of this expo, Empowered Light Expo. We have been bestowed the power. All of you here are capable of vision and sight and movement. There's so much that can be done with that. All of you here are capable of having a voice. There's so much that can be done with that. And so the mindset I was in at 17 to build a reactor was that, almost a selfless accountability, where there's a problem that I know I didn't create, that I know that one could argue I really don't even need to bother, because it's been going on since before I was born. But despite that, I said, you know, I'm going to take on the weight of that, because I believe that it's a human right for us to be born into a world without microplastics. So I was in a welding program in high school, And my junior and senior year is when I was in the welding program. So I'm a certified welder. And that gave me the ability to actually build my machines. But you see, the story got even deeper than that alone, because if we go back in time, like I said, it was 10th grade when I was about 15 years old when I saw the first video of the ocean plastics. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. That video never, it always bothered me. But what happened my senior year of high school, in welding class, one of my classmates actually stabbed me on my right hand. And you can't really see it from here. Maybe you can, but it almost looks like some type of like shark bite or something. I have this this scar on my right thumb because what happened was I was stabbed there. Accident or not, I can't really say to this day, because on one hand, he had a knife in class playing with it. And he also was kind of jealous of me being ahead of him. So I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't change the perspective of how you internalize it anyway. So going back to that, stabbed my hand, and I lost mobility. My tendon was cut. And I've always been a kinesthetic person. So my entire life, I was gardening, making jewelry, welding, building things, Legos, whatever. First time in my life that I was immobilized to some degree, especially my right hand. I'm dominant in my right hand. So I was in a splint. Had to get surgery. Even after surgery, the 6 months of physical, recovery and splints, and I still couldn't weld. It was depressing, well, on paper, right? It should have been depressing, right? And it was for a moment. And at some point in that time of where I felt like I lost control, like an accident happened to me that has now affected me in a way that, wasn't fair. In that moment, I still said the same thing to myself that I just told you all then. I said, what can I be grateful for? I can be grateful for the fact that I'm in a place where I can get this surgery. I can be grateful for that I'm in a place where, on top of that, I only lost mobility here and not get my whole hand cut off, right? But also, I can be grateful for the fact that I'm still able to think. And so in that moment, I thought to myself, okay, instead of saying what I can't do, like, oh, I can't build, I can't garden, I said, what can I do better in this place of a lack of mobility? And I said to myself, I can think and process and plan solutions towards things that I want to get done. And so I went right back to where I was in that 10th grade place and thinking about problems in the world, and I thought about the plastic problem again, and I said, you know what? Let me look into this problem right now, because I can do research more than any time right now. And I started right there, senior year, recovering after my surgery, and I started to look up with questions. I started with this one question: what is plastic made of? By a raise of hands, how many of you know what plastic is made of? What is plastic made of here? Anybody? I heard it, petroleum. Bingo. That's not common knowledge. Despite plastic being the most common product in this world, 9 out of 10 times the seats are plastic that you're sitting on, your clothes are plastic, this rug is plastic. It's the most common material on earth, but it's not common knowledge what it's made of. So that was the first and most important question. I just looked up on Google. This was before AI, before Gemini, baby. This was just straight Google search, right? Which sounds crazy now, because even that was super powerful. Going back to the gratitude of like the situation and the age we're in, you can look at it as if we're in an age of like all of these things and algorithms and technologies are used to control us. But I also like to look at it as we can use all of these algorithms and technologies to control our outcome of the world. But it's all up to us how we want to see it and how we want to use it. So anyway, looking that up, just what is plastic made of? Petroleum. Okay, why don't we recycle plastic? Why not? Because, well, if you didn't know, less than 1% of plastic gets recycled. That means even if you put plastic in your recycle bin, for every 100 bottles you throw in your recycle bin, you're lucky if one gets recycled. That's the global statistic. That's how it is. And I knew that from the documentary, so I said, why? Why isn't plastic recycled? Why is that recycled? Because to do mechanical recycling, to turn a plastic bottle into another bottle, right? You need the bottle to be clean. You need it to be a single type of plastic. I mean, just for instance, does anybody know, by a guess, how many different types of plastic are on a single plastic bottle, like a water bottle? Any guess? Because it's not one. 2. at least 3 different types of plastic are on a plastic water bottle alone. You have the actual body of the water bottle, that's PET, polyethyl terephthalate. Then you have the wrap, which can be made of polyethylene. And then you have the cap, which is made of polypropylene. That's 3 different types of plastic. And if I want to turn one bottle into another one, I have to separate every single one of those out individually. And then there's the glue that's around the wrap. They have to clean and separate all that. And then there's the residue of whatever drink was in there. So now you can see clearly, just off of bottles alone, that gets pretty complex to recycle, right? Because how many are thrown away every single day? And then on top of that, did you know that there's not just one type of plastic? There's over 9 different types of commonly used plastics in the world, right? Like the plastic that makes your milk jug is different from the plastic that makes styrofoam, than the plastic that makes a bag. And when you want to mechanically recycle them, you have to separate and clean every single one. You cannot just throw the whole water bottle in with the cap and all and get it out the other side. You can only throw in that one part that makes the other one part, and you put them back together. So that was doomed from the start. That could never work at the scale of our plastic consumption. But like I said, it started with why. I said what again? I said, well, what can be done with plastic then? And since it's made of petroleum. And then I found out that you can turn it back into petroleum through a process called pyrolysis. Pyrolysis is a word from Greek. Pyro means heat. Lysis means to break apart. You put it together, you're breaking apart things with heat. So you put plastic inside of a chamber that has no air, it has no oxygen, right? It's a closed chamber that's heated up from the outside. And what that does is it causes the plastic to break back down into petroleum, into what it's made of. It breaks down into a petroleum vapor. So I kind of like to look at this process a lot like making moonshine or whiskey. Not that I've ever done that, but I'm just saying there are a lot of parallels, right? I always tell people I was either going to be building machines or I was going to be like Walter Black, making, never mind, I'm not going to. So anyway, it's basically distillation. We're basically distilling the plastic, just like how when we refine crude oil to make gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, we're essentially doing that with plastic. You put the plastic in a chamber, a reactor chamber, a pyrolysis reactor. You heat it up without air or oxygen. That's very important because if you have air or oxygen present, it catches on fire. We're not burning plastic. See, when you catch something on fire, it's called an oxidative reaction. That's why if you have a candle and you put the lid over the candle, the fire goes out, because a fire needs 3 things. It needs heat, air, and fuel, right? Or more of oxygen than air. And so without oxygen, a fire cannot exist. We want that environment. That's what pyrolysis is. See, incineration or combustion is when you heat something up and catch it on fire. We're not catching it on fire on purpose because we don't want we all know what happens when plastic burns. We don't want those reactions. We want to get fuel out of it. And so without oxygen, it breaks down into petroleum vapor. And that petroleum vapor then can be cooled back down through condensation, just like how water can become clouds and clouds can rain. We can cool it down into crude oil, and that crude oil can then be refined into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. And these are all products that I have made and tested in all types of engines, Rolls Royces, 7.3 Power Stroke engines, Cummins diesel engines, Scat Packs, motorcycles. The fuel is real fuel. And that's basically a nutshell of how the technology and the chemistry side works of it. And this was all something that I had, at the time self-taught myself, because I, like I said, was for one in high school, senior year, and they put me in honors chemistry in 9th grade, and I passed with a 70. So I was no chemist by any degree. But kind of going back to the whole mindset thing, I really didn't let that even affect my mindset. When I was looking into the plastic problem, my goal was to find a solution. If the solution happened to be through chemistry, so be it. If it happened to be through mechanical engineering, so be it. But my goal was, I look around the world and I see a problem that's not being solved, not being done right how I would want it done. And so I want to actually, instead of complaining about it or talking about it, I want to be a part of the solution, even if beyond all else, I'm able to just say I'm recycling all of my own plastic. And so when I looked it up and it happened to be chemistry, I would say normal psychology would say, well, look, you barely passed chemistry class. What are you gonna? You don't have a degree. You know, you're gonna blow yourself up basically. And I did blow myself up for the record at some point in time doing this, but that came way later. But the point was, that almost discouraging voice, I just didn't listen to it. You know, we all have it. You know, the angel and the demon on the shoulder, and at some point you have to just tell it to shut up. You know, because when and when you're called to do something and something needs to be done, that's more important than your own doubts and fears, which usually, we shut ourselves down far beyond or before anything outside of us usually will shut us down. As a matter of fact, most things that go against us in this world are all psychological warfare. It's all about making you convince yourself that you can't do it, that you quit. And then they don't even have to do their job at that point, right? On any type of physical level. So I applied that same mindset and said, I want to build this machine anyway. And so I did. And I always was in a perspective of resourcefulness. I would go around my welding. First of all, I asked my welding instructor for permission. Asked him, can I build a reactor in the classroom if I get ahead of class? Obviously, I'm not going to, operate it at school. And he said, yeah, if you get ahead of everybody, you can. So despite being behind by 4 months because I had to recover, I got ahead of everybody because I was motivated to do this. And I built my first reactor in the actual class. I barely convinced my parents to let me actually move it into the backyard. They're actually here, by the way, in the back. They're running the Jabberama booth in that back right corner. But yeah, I mean, as anybody would expect, what that type of conversation went through, I walked up to them one day and I said, hey, I know we live in this HOA neighborhood and all, but can I build a pyrolysis reactor in your backyard? And yeah, that was a back and forth process. But nonetheless, I made it happen. Even if I just barely did, I did. And there were a lot of points in that journey where you're walking purely through faith, right? Where you're walking purely through, almost day by day, the daily bread of, I don't have the part I need today, and you just barely get it the next day, right? But it's all in the mind and within yourself, where you can believe within yourself that you will get it. You can believe in yourself that it will be done because this is something the world needs. So when I went into this, my intention was to change the world with this and to bring this into the world in a way that would change the world. So intentionality is everything. I always say the only person and the only people that know what your true intentions are you and God. And if you have pure intentions, doors will open up naturally for you that you could have never conceived. But that only happens if you have pure intentions, and only you know that. Nobody else can truly know it. That's completely up to you. But my intentions going into this were completely pure. And through having pure intentions, you can apply just the faith of knowing that things have to go the right way, because you're now being enacted upon as a vessel to bring upon a better world for everybody. And so thus, I built these machines, and I continued to build prototype after prototype. I started to share it online, pick up traction for that, because I would share it online in a way that people could understand. I did not invent pyrolysis. Like I said, I looked it up on Google, but what I've done is I've implemented the technology in a way that the world can actually benefit from it and use it. Because, look, guys, it's a simple equation. If, plastic into fuel technology has existed, but it clearly isn't working. Because if it was working, would we have all the ocean plastic? No. Because will we ever have such thing as money in the ocean floating around? I don't think so. I don't think any of us would be in this room right now if there was money all over the Emerald Coast. We'd all be out in that ocean, So if we can make plastic valuable, if we can make plastic money, then there's going to be no such thing as ocean plastic, as litter, as waste. So clearly, the technology that we've had in this world to turn plastic into fuel has been insufficient. And my goal was always, I want to get this to a point where it is usable and applicable in this world. And so that's been my approach, and also how I share it with people. I share it in a way where it's not some Harvard scientist talking to you using words you don't even know. No, I'm saying this to you in a way in which you can understand, because I knew going into this that a huge issue in this field was a lack of education. Like we just shared, most people don't even know that plastic is made of petroleum, even though it's the most common material. So there's a severe lack of education. People also don't know you could turn it back into petroleum. Once again, is that on purpose by the system? I don't know. See, that's another thing that I've done many times. I've oftentimes almost disregarded these external factors of, saying, is this a system put against us? Is this an agenda put against us? I say, I don't know, but regardless, I'm going to move forward with the solution. Why? Because you focus on what you can control. I don't know what the agendas are in this world. I don't know what powers be are against us or for us, but all I know is that I've been put in a position to have tools and influence to do something, and that's all I focus on. You focus on growth. Like a tree can lose a limb in the forest, and you know what it does more than mourning over the limb it lost? It puts energy towards growing new limbs to not only just replace that, but now it has even more ability to grab light, which will then allow it to grow even stronger and support the entire forest even more. And that's the type of mindset we have to have, this perspective that can almost, in a way, come off like almost naive in a way. It's not that you're ignoring a problem, but you're focusing more on the solution. You're focusing on what you want to grow, because where you put intention is where something grows and what it becomes. So do you want the big problems in the world, or do you want the solutions? So I don't focus every day on mourning about how bad the oceans look. I focus every day on saying, I'm doing something about it, and I'm focusing towards it, and I want that solution out there. I'm putting everything I have, as I say, desde mi corazón y mi alma, from my heart and my soul, into the mission, not into the problem, because I don't want the problem to grow. What you put your attention towards grows. And so that's one of the most important key characteristics that we all have to take from this, because we have been programmed, and it's even just basic human psychology. They say negative is stronger than good. We all like to, your brain wants you to focus on the bad because it poses a risk towards you. But sometimes we have to break our own psychology to be, if you want to be beyond the world, you have to think and act beyond the world and beyond the material, which is your own body and ego, holding you bound down to these means of things like focusing on fear, focusing on what's wrong, right? You have to break that, and you can break it. It's within you. And I know you can break it because I believe I have, or at least I'm in the process of breaking it every day. We're always growing. And so people often ask me on that same note, doing what I do, right? Turning plastic into fuel, sharing it online. I'm giving the blueprints to the world of this mission and journey. People will often ask, do you fear for your safety, right? Do you think that some agency is going to get you? Is that a thought that any of you have thought today? Because everywhere I go, somebody's always asking, are you worried? How do you protect yourself and all this? And once again, kind of the same perspective. I've had Black Hawk helicopters circle my workspace. I've had super intense cybersecurity attacks where my entire life is hacked. Like you see in movies where every device around you is tapped and getting information from you. All your cameras, all your microphones on every device is completely tapped. I've had that, right? And despite that, I'm still here to this day talking and sharing it with the world stronger than ever, because it kind of goes back. Thank you. It kind of goes back to that same perspective of course, intentionality. I know my intentions are pure, so there's nobody or no force in this world that's going to convince me that I'm doing something wrong, right? Because you know how the intimidation tactics work. It can all be in the mind. They want you to feel like you're doing something wrong or illegal when you're giving light into the world, right? So they're not going to convince me, because they want to fly a helicopter over my work site, that I'm doing something wrong, when there are far bigger criminals in the world than somebody trying to deal with plastic waste. But I know that within me. But also, in the very beginning, everything is like a plant and a tree, right? The roots you set, right? And the soil you set and how it grows. You see, I didn't share this earlier, but before I even was passionate about the plastic problem, my parents had enrolled me in karate when I was about 7 years old. And I ended up getting my black belt in karate when I was close to 13. So that was 6 years, about almost 6 years in the craft of karate, right? When I first went into karate class, there were about, to the right and to the left of me, there were students. There were about probably 25 students in that classroom. Fast forward about 6 years later, when I went to get my black belt, do my black belt test, I was the only student left. Everybody else, either maybe they had moved away, life had taken them somewhere, some people just quit. But that taught me something. Because that first day I was in karate, And then even in the entirety of all the years being in the class, I was never the best naturally. I was never the strongest, the fastest naturally. But despite that, I was the only one out of that whole group to get my black belt. Why? Not because of skill or luck or some supernatural strength. It was all because of the mind. It was all because I just didn't give up. That was the only reason. And that taught me very young in life that that's literally what makes you supernatural. That's literally what makes you superhuman. The perseverance and the mind. Because the only thing that separates those who do from those who don't is who keeps up with it with enough time and enough perseverance, right? Who almost has that irrational self-belief and faith within themselves that even when everything looks like it's falling apart, they're going to somehow make it work. Even when, despite any outside noise of people saying what won't work or what will, right? You're so focused and channeled within your own that you know where you're going. And so that is what taught me perseverance. And that was the very foundation I walked into the plastic into fuel mission with to begin with. From day one, I walked in saying, just like how I got my black belt, I said, I'm going to see this mission through to the end until I am literally solving the ocean plastic problem and the land plastic problem. And so with that mindset, I couldn't quit despite being in fear. I couldn't quit despite any threats. And so if I know within myself, I'm not going to quit, I'm going to see this through to the end, why be scared? What would it do? What will it help? That's the real question. What will fear help if you know fear will only help you if you have doubts. If you're like on the fence, like, oh, okay. Don't do something if you're on the fence. Only do something that you know you will see through to the end. Because we are beings of such strong creation ability, right? What we put our intention and attention towards will grow. Don't put yourself and your life force into something that you don't really know if you want, because that could have then been spent either growing yourself or into something else that you actually truly want in this world. And so that's important. You have to know from the beginning. You begin with the end in mind, right? Where you want to go and what needs to happen, because then that becomes the foundation and basis of every action after that point, right? So if I know I want to solve the plastic problem, and right now, the route that seems to make the most sense to me is to build these machines, share them with the world, get the blueprints out to the world. If that's what makes sense to me and that's getting me to my goal, and I know I'm not going to be stopped, being afraid of some entity that I may or may not even see, that may or may not even be a threat, will only slow down and make that process less efficient. And so it's not as though, I'm naive to believe that there isn't a threat out in the world, that I'm not possibly stepping on people's big toes and stuff, but it's more of the perspective of, even if I am, I believe since my intentions are pure, and I believe there is good in this world, and there are good for every evil force. There's a good force, equally strong, if not stronger, good force, that God got me. That's what I believe. I believe that no matter what, the fact that I'm even here right now today is proof of that, because today, to get here to Destin, I just got here literally about an hour and a half ago, because I had vehicle issue after vehicle issue with the next machine I'm building, which is on a mobile system. So the first step was to drive it from Georgia to Miami, where it was going to get wrapped, because a wrap shop said they wanted to help just sponsor it to the cause. And so on the way down to Miami, Florida, I had 2 tire blowouts. We put in a new alternator and 2 new batteries the night before. The brand new alternator that we put in had completely gone out. That's just like bad luck, I guess, but even though it was brand new. So I had to swap an alternator out on the road in the parking lot of an O'Reilly's. And then we had a coolant leak, so then the vehicle wasn't making power and overheating. Despite that, I got it down to Miami, right? We got the bus wrapped, right? But then I had to go from Miami up to Destin. So hold your applause, because that was a whole other journey. Yep. But I made it here because guess what? So we had all those issues with the tires and the alternator on the way down. We all knew, we all thought, okay, we've kind of eliminated so many variables that getting up to Destin will be good. Despite that, we'll still leave a day early. So I took off to Destin Thursday night, and then the problems began. First of all, we had a tire that started to go out, but guess what? We were ready. We had the spare right there. Beep, swap it out, zip, 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 like Lightning McQueen, NASCAR, right? But then something else happened. I was driving. It was about midnight, and I don't know if you guys ever been on the Florida Pike. it's like this really, really long road. It's like an interstate, but imagine an interstate where the exits are like every 50 miles, all right? And then in between every exit, it's literally just swamp land and Jason Voorhees around you and Freddy Krueger, and like, it's bad out there. Mosquitoes, it's bad, yeah. So it's like, you know, and I remember when I was driving on the Pike for the first time, I'm like, you know, I'm so glad this bus is having no issues, because this would suck to break down here. Anyway, midnight of Thursday, that happened. I broke down on the Pike, probably the worst spot possible, because there was a guardrail right where I broke down, and the bus just stops right there. I barely made it onto the shoulder. Power steering was going out. And so now I'm literally on the guardrail, you know, like this is the guardrail, right? And then the main interstate is right here. And I'm in this big bus, semi-trucks, shoo, shoo. Like every time they swing by, the whole bus would shake, you know? And it was rough. And I was there in that one spot for almost 10 hours. Actually, 10 hours, yeah, before the tow people showed up. Because since the Florida Pike has, like, you know, an exit every 50 miles, even somebody relatively nearby, in order to, you know, come around and then make the circle to get on the other side, it would take them 2 hours. And so it was rough just to even get a tow person out there. So after 10 hours of being on the side of the road, got the tow person, we got towed to the nearest shop, the nearest, what they call that, truck center. And then at that truck center, now this was Friday. Mind you, I was supposed to arrive in Destin on Thursday, all right? Anyway, it was Friday at the tow center. I had some guys out there helping me. We went to go grab parts that we were trying to troubleshoot what went wrong, because I was essentially driving 60 miles per hour, and then just the whole bus just turned, the engine turned off, lost power, even electrically, to the point where power steering was out, right? And it wouldn't start up again, right? So we checked, obviously, all fluids, motor, the actual oil, you know, the coolant. None of that looked bad. Everything looked fine. On paper, there was no reason the engine shouldn't have ran. Everything was fine. Tires were fine, right? Anyway, we put up a sensor or a reader on it, and it said there was all these electrical issues with all these sensors all of a sudden. And mind you, we did the 14-hour drive, which actually was closer to 36 hours, from Georgia to Miami. And we only had like tire issues, tire blowouts, coolant, you know, physical things. Now all these electrical issues popped out of nowhere, out of the blue. You know, they said the fuel pump went out at the same time that the oil pressure sensor went out. At the same time, the camshaft, like things I never even heard of before. And so we got all the parts. And we replaced almost all of the sensors, and for the first time ever in my life, because I'm mechanically inclined, but I've never been like an automotive tech. But I was in there. I literally have a video of me in the engine, like my elbows deep into this engine, trying to get this last sensor out to replace it. Mind you, now this is I'm at the same truck stop all day. So now it's Friday, and it's about 7 o'clock at night. Yesterday, I'm elbows deep in this engine trying to get this last sensor out. The last thing I need to get this truck to start, and I was ready to just start the drive up to Destin. I was 7 hours away at this point, and the sensor was just completely seized in there, completely rusted and stuck on there. Couldn't get it out. So, mind you, still in the perspective of, I'm making it to Destin. I'm making it to that conference. So I said, how? So then I said, all right, well, let me see if any supporters around here can give me a tow. And I just put out a video, and a supporter reached out. Shout out to Robinson. He drove me from right there at that point in Florida Pike, wherever the heck I was in this random county with mosquitoes and crap. He took me from there 7 hours up to Panama, where we dropped it off at a diesel technician shop. And then now, as of literally just an hour and a half ago, I made it. And so thank you all for, keeping up with the journey. But see, what just happened there was everything I just talked to you about. The perseverance, the irrational faith, right? All of that, right? And still, even now, I have to still have faith that I'm going to be able to get everything solved, because I put everything into the vehicle in the next machine, right? Like, we just got it wrapped, for example. So that's a huge investment and time and financial investment to put into something that is all of a sudden having all these problems out the blue. But I'm okay internally. As a matter of fact, Sue here, when I got here, she was like, you're really relaxed. And I'm relaxed because even though there is chaos going on outside of me, or not, it's all about perspective, internally I know in the end that, once again, since my intentions are pure, everything will be all right because God got me, right? As long as my intentions are pure, and I know, and nobody else may know that or not, right? Some people online may say, there's always noise, no matter what you do. There will always be people that say things good or bad. And let me tell you guys something that may actually sound contradictory to what you would normally think, right? Because everybody all the time wants to tell you, ignore the haters, right? Ignore everybody saying things. I'll be real with you. In some ways, you have to also ignore the praise. See, nobody says that, but that's very important. You know why? Because if you accept the praise so much that that's what you fight for and that's why you do what you do, what happens when there is no more praise? What happens when nobody else can see the vision in the moment but a few people, right? And that's happened to me many times, believe it or not. I've had times, I'll tell you most recently, when I put out the video saying that I'm not going to patent my technology and give it to the world, I had an entourage of supporters that were like angry at me and cussing me out. They're like, what is wrong with you? Why would you not want to secure generational wealth? Why would you, and I always said, I don't want to secure generational wealth. I want to secure a generation for the world, period, right? But the point is, despite these being my own supporters that just the other day were praising me, there was a time and a moment where the vision was lost to them, that they couldn't see the long-term vision. And if I was so reliant on the praise, that could have broken me. If I was so reliant on the praise, I may have been pressured to fall for whatever advisement they were trying to say for their validation. So, you have to not necessarily ignore one or the other, the praise or the hate. What you do is you use it as energy, because it is energy, whether it's hate or praise, it still is energy, and energy can all be filtered through you to go into what you want. So regardless of whether I'm getting support or criticism, it all helps me. But my foundation and my anchor is within me. I tell people all the time, if I got banned on social media today, couldn't make any more videos for whatever reason anywhere, I would still be building, because I was never building for the praise of the world. I was building for the world, for humanity. I was never building for the fame of humanity. I was building for humanity, and sometimes what needs to be done is not always what people want to see up front. It doesn't appear. It doesn't, isn't as always approachable in a way that appears digestible, but it still needs to be done, right? And so I'm fortunate that I'm doing a mission where people immediately get on board and are like, yeah, we need that. But in some moments, in some ways, people have different perspectives that doesn't quite align with how I see it needs to be done. And in those moments, I have to go back to my own anchor within me, which was, this is to change the world. This is not for me. This is not to make money. This is not for fame. This is to change the world. And it doesn't really matter. If I have to be, ridiculed and beat up or mocked to be in a position to change the world, then that's okay. Because that's what I believe I was called to do. And so I'm going to go through with that. And so that's a very important perspective you have to have, that also will help you through any situation like this. When you're going through these unexpected, situations and causes, something that I often do in my life is I'm actually sometimes overly opportunistic, or not opportunistic, but optimistic when it comes to my timelines with things. I can be overly optimistic when it comes to me kind of like almost planning for the unplanned. Like I didn't expect so many issues to go wrong with that bus on the way up here. However, I will be honest, that bus had been sitting for many years. It was donated to me for the cause. We were working on it for months to build it out, to make the inside like a living RV, to pull the trailer so that way I can tour the whole United States with the next reactor. Anyway, we put it on the road for the first time for over 1,000 miles going to Miami without any road tests. So, you see, I'll be honest, that was a stupid move, right? I'll be honest, it wasn't wise. I could have done more to prepare myself better. Accountability is everything. You have to always grow. The minute you stop growing is a minute where everything around you stops growing. So you always have to be able to be in a place where you can say to yourself, how can I improve? How can I do better? Because none of us know everything. One of my favorite quotes is, all I know is that I know nothing, because we're always learning. And so relative to yesterday, you don't know anything if you're always growing and challenging yourself. And so with absolute accountability and the pure intentions, you can get anything done, because now, and then you have a perspective and an anchor where when you do have critics, it doesn't shake you, right? Because you know within yourself that this is all for the mission. So even if somebody is coming off really spiteful, you can still see through their really spiteful critics and get what you need out of it, right? And leave the rest, because you're anchored within yourself, right? So as I'm saying this over and over again, we're going back to the same place. But going back to within you, because that's the key. The change is within you. The power is within you. It's all about your perspective. It's all about your mindset. And all of that is completely in your control. And all of that is the only thing that we truly have in our control. So if there's nothing else you take from this, it's not even about turning the plastic into fuel. Mind you, all that is just a natural byproduct and a natural reaction of wanting to see a better world. But there's so many ways that we need a better world, so many other things that need to be done, but all of that still goes back down to the same roots of you, your perspective, your mindset, you being willing to continue to grow, take accountability. You apply it to anything, and your journey will look very similar to the journey of any person that has gone through the trials and tribulations to achieve greatness in this world, because it's the same patterns. And so what I'm trying to create here is a space and a blueprint where no matter what you all do, because we've all been given purposes to do great things on this world, right? So I'm not trying to give you this blueprint to what I built, because not everybody's here to build pyrolysis reactors. I'm trying to create a blueprint for internally that no matter what your purpose is or what you go after, you apply certain mindsets and personality and character traits that they'll get you through anything in life. And I myself, I'm only 22, so a lot of you know a lot more than I do, and I never will claim to know a lot, but I will say that given a lot of the things that I have done, I have experienced quite a bit, especially in the field of, building reactors and such, and applying those things to other parts of life is something that allowed me to get to where I'm at, right? Where now I am at a position where I have collectively 7 million followers internationally. And I'm at a point now where I'm able to truly get funding for these machines through influence and sponsorships to get them to a point where now soon we're going to have a trailer machine that will go everywhere in the United States, including the Emerald Coast, Destin, Florida. And you'll be able to see, imagine the next Pyrolysis Expo. We can have it here. Any plastic waste generated at the Expo can be made into fuel right here on site. People can leave with full tanks right there, And we're here after all these years of work, but not because of the outside, but because of the inside perspective. And so that's the only thing I want you all to take from this. It's all within you, and it's your choice. So with that being said, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here. Yes, okay, I do have a website that you can donate to. So it's jabinnovations.org. That's JAB innovations.org. That's my nonprofit, my 501c3. On that same note of support, one of the most direct and best ways you guys can support is actually I have an entirely other brand and business called Jab Aroma. I make all natural products. I make all natural deodorant, sunscreen, mosquito repellent, lotion, hairspray, and everything what I make is not, just white label from China. I literally hire my brother and my mother. We have a warehouse in Georgia. We make this stuff by hand. Nothing has more than 5 ingredients, and 10% of all the profits go directly to the cause. And so we literally have the Jab Aroma table. It's set up out there towards the right. You'll see a tablecloth that's blue with a fist on it that's holding a lavender flower. And so everything on Jab Aroma is 100% made from hand, including all the essential oil formulas. And that's something I'm just as passionate about. Kind of going back to the speech I was talking about, the mindsets that I apply or have shared with you is not just for plastic and the fuel, but this is for anything that you believe the world needs. And I believe the world and everybody on the world deserves access to products, especially hygiene products that are not going to give you cancer. Right, so I've been formulating deodorant for years now as an athlete, black belt in karate, welder that works in all situations. Over 500 5-star reviews, and that's a great way you can support. Yes, but I want to thank Sue and Smarty so much. Yes.
Say it slower, the name of your product.
Yes. Okay. The donation link or my products. My products. It's Jab Aroma. So that's JAB Aroma. One word. Yes. Any other questions? Yes. I do have a YouTube. My YouTube is Nature jab. So nature, and then JAB, jab, like the punch, put together, one word, nature jab. Or you could just look up that black dude that turns plastic into fuel. That works too. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Smarty. And I look forward to tomorrow as well, too. Yep.
We have a Q&A panel
Awesome.
right now.
Oh, awesome. Well, it looks like I've already started that.
You can have a break, but
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to answer questions.
all right, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.